Intro stage. A few moments after you select New Game, you're going to want to skip over the intro cutscene. You won't be able to do that unless you already have a save file. It doesn't need to be completed, just any save. And the timing for it is around right when the screen gets completely black. If you see the cutscene come up for a moment, that means you're too late. You have to use the start button to skip that, so I use start to select New Game, and then again to skip the cutscene. And right after you do that, you've got two quick dialog boxes to get through. For text, both A and B will advance it, so my mashing technique is to roll my thumb back and forth on A and B. You can buffer inputs out of mission start, so you just want to start dashing to the right immediately. At some point during the run, you're going to want to pause and configure your controls. This top section lets you change button layout. Bottom section controls what the sub-weapon is used by. You're going to want to set that to mode B. In this mode, the sub-weapon button fires your sub-weapon, and the primary weapon button attacks with your primary weapon. Very simple. Not sure why this isn't the default, but we all just have to deal with it. This isn't optional. You're going to need this form of control for fighting the bosses, and it's also just a lot more usable in general. While you're here, you might also want to change your button layout. Personally, I like to swap my primary and secondary weapon slot, just because at the end of this stage we get the Z-Saber and it gets equipped by default as a sub-weapon, but I prefer to have it on B. Instead, you could pause and swap where the Saber and the Buster are equipped. This has one notable disadvantage in that throughout the run we're going to be changing one of our weapons more frequently than the other, and it's going to be the Buster. We mostly keep the Saber equipped the entire time. So having the Saber in the second weapon slot, the sub spot, is actually preferable. Another advantage to changing controls now is that you can fire your Buster with both weapon buttons, which allows for really fast mashing, even if you're not very good at it. Doesn't make a huge difference because there's not a whole lot of mashing to do either way, but I think it's pretty nice. Alright, let's get into the stage itself. So we get through the starting stuff, do the menuing, and then the first thing we're going to want to do is take out that guy so we can clear these other two. It's possible to do with one really long dash from the start, like that. It's a bit easier if you quickly do a second dash. Might cost you like a frame or something. Alright, coming up is one of the trickier parts of this stage. So we want to clear this spider nest entirely. To do that, we need to get a pretty precise horizontal positioning as we're landing down there. The visual cue I use is right as I'm getting past this line in the background. Also, it's where the slope levels out. You'd rather look at that. And then I fire one Buster shot right as I'm landing. Well, right before I'm landing. So it kills that first spider. And then I do another jump right as I land and fire two shots, one with each weapon button. You only need one shot after you jump, but I find the second one makes it more consistent. And for each of the jumps, it's just the full height. So hold the jump button the entire time, basically, until you're landing. This one might take some practice, but it's pretty doable. One important thing about this stage is that when we get to the boss, we're going to want to be at low health. That way we can trigger a cutscene earlier. In order for that to work, we need to be at either 3 or 4 health. So we're going to take a number of damage boosts throughout the stage. An important distinction is that getting hit by spider nests takes 2 damage, whereas the spiders themselves only do 1. So, when possible, we prefer to dash into the nests. So, I jump this first one, dash into that nest, dash into that one. Alright, we've got 3 damage boosts coming up. For each of them we can be boosted forwards instead of backwards if we jump from the right spot. This first is the trickiest, I'd say. The visual cue I use is right as I'm getting to like this line or so. I do a full hop. Might take some practice, but it's really not that bad. Next we want to get boosted by this bomb. We want to jump over it and get boosted forwards. The cue I use is around as I'm getting to this line on the wall. Like that. If you go too far forwards, sometimes you won't kill both of the Pantheons. It's not a big deal, but it will affect the RNG manipulation if you're worrying about that. Most notably, it will cause this guy to drop health, which you might hit depending on your movement. Most of the time though, you'll kill both and it's not a problem. For this next one, the cue I use is like just at the top of this landing. This one's pretty free, really. Though, if the RNG manipulation is such that that first guy is going to drop health, then you want to be really far forward, like that, to avoid it. So in that situation, it's a little bit tougher, but most of the time it's, like I said, pretty free. And then you just trigger some cutscenes. You're going to want to dash into this cutscene, just so you get there a few frames earlier from being wider. Well, might just be like 1 frame. I don't know exactly. You can buffer out of that cutscene, so just hold right and dash. And then again, you want to dash into this cutscene ideally. Okay, the golem. There's a little bit going on here. First of all, you'll notice my health is at 4. Like I said, we want it to be at 3 or 4 when we get here. That way, when you jump into him like this, it triggers the saber cutscene right away. Again, you can buffer inputs out of this cutscene, so just hold right, dash, and jump. And then you get the cutscene right away. Make sure to mash through the text quickly. It does make a difference here. And then once the fight starts, we do what's called the EXP glitch. You see all these yellow sparks that are getting kicked up by my saber? That's me getting a ton of experience. To execute this glitch, you just hold down, jump, and attack out of the cutscene. And then for the following 2 attacks, you just re-input those buttons right as you land. You have to hold down or else you won't do an extended jump slash. It would just be a regular attack and you won't get very much XP at all. So hold down for the extended jump slash, do it 3 times, and then jump up and end the fight. You can get 4 like that, but the extra XP is not generally needed, and it's relatively inconsistent. It only works very well for certain pixels that you enter the fight on, so that's a huge pain. There is a setup to consistently get 4 jumps, I'll go over that a little bit later in the run. Because like I said, in my route, that's not necessary. So I mentioned that it's important to mash quickly as you're getting through the Saber cutscene. You'll notice that the golem is bouncing up and down on a timed cycle during this text. So if you take a while to get through the text, then he might be in a different position, which can affect the XP glitch. That time it worked out for me, but if the timing's wrong, you just won't get any experience from your jump. And you'll be able to tell that that's happening because you won't be getting many sparks with the attack. Like that. I didn't get any extra experience that time because I got through the text slowly and he was in a wrong spot in the cycle. If your mashing is at all decent, it should never be a problem on the Japanese version. On the English version, because it takes longer to get through text, this is a serious concern. You need to really be on top of your game with the mashing to get the EXP glitch. It isn't impossible or anything, but you've got to make sure you're mashing at a good rate. Or you could deliberately wait half a second or something for him to get into a good spot on the cycle. That is up to you. One last thing with this, specifically in the execution of the glitch itself. So I said you want to hold down, jump, and attack to do the glitch. And then you repress those buttons right as you land to do the following jumps. It's a little bit more complicated than that, in that you want to release the buttons a little bit before you land. If you hold the extended jump slash the entire jump, then you won't be able to do another one right as you hit the ground. You'll just kind of not do anything. It's pretty rare, but yeah, a bit after you reach the peak of your jump, you can release the inputs, and then just get ready to press them again right as you hit the ground. And then after the third one, you just jump up, end the fight. A little bit more text. That's a really bad time, by the way. You should be getting 24 seconds on this stage, if everything goes according to plan, with my route. Alright, so in terms of RNG manipulation, there's nothing really too crazy going on in this stage. As long as you go through at a good rate, and you kill the same enemies that I kill, you should get the same RNG. The pattern we're looking for on the boss is the one where he aims his laser upward. It's not actually that important. Even if he does the pattern where he aims the laser down, you still have time to get all 3 EXP glitches in and end the fight before you get killed. But it is a little bit tight, so it's safer to have him aim up like that. Like I said, there's nothing too tricky. Just do the same stuff I do, you'll get the same RNG. Or do whatever you want to do and do it the same every time, and you'll get the same RNG. Okay. Last thing I want to cover. I mentioned how you can get 4 EXP glitches on the golem, and that there's a setup to make that more consistent. I want to emphasize that this isn't part of the current optimized route. It is possible, though, that at some point in the future I will want to re-add this to the route, so I figure I might as well go over it here. So if we go back to this cutscene, this will always start you at the exact same position horizontally, which is important because whether or not we can get 4 EXP glitches on the golem depends on which pixel we're standing in when we enter that room. So the setup is to do a number of dashes, 5, just moving along the ground. Do not hold any directional button. This is kind of slow because in between each of the dashes you're not moving at all. But if you're decent at it, you should only be losing like 6 frames or something. Maybe more like 8 or 10. But it's not a terrible loss if the XP you gain is worth it. And then at that point you just do the fight the exact same. You buffer the dash jump into them. And then you'll be on a good pixel to get 4 jumps. If you're not on a good pixel, that 4th jump will almost always kill the golem. It's possible to get 4 glitches, even from a different pixel, but it's very rare. It requires really good timing on your jumping. So, if you find that you need extra EXP in your route, that's an option.